Picture your average Tuesday. You wake up, check your phone, eat something, sit for hours, scroll, eat again, maybe exercise if you feel guilty enough, then lie in bed, too tired to sleep. You call it a normal day. But somewhere in the back of your mind, a question nags. Is this actually how you were built to live? The answer is no. And the real answer is far stranger than you think. For most of human history, a Tuesday looked nothing like yours, not even close. The version of you that existed 50,000 years ago had a life so different from the one you live now that if you could step into it for a single day, you would not recognize yourself. You would be exhausted, filthy, terrified, and also, somehow, more alive than you have ever felt sitting at a desk. So what did ancient humans actually do all day? The short answer most people carry around is wrong. You probably picture something like this. Humans wake up at dawn, spend the whole day desperately hunting massive animals, barely surviving, running from predators, and collapsing from exhaustion every night. That version makes for a good movie. It does not match the evidence. Anthropologist Marshall Sahlins spent years studying modern hunter-gatherer societies, groups like the Kungsan of the Kalahari and the Hadza of Tanzania, whose way of life most closely resembles that of your deep ancestors. What he found turned the standard narrative upside down. He called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society, not because they were rich in things, because they were rich in time. The average hunter-gatherer, Sahlins found, worked somewhere between 3 and 5 hours a day to meet all of their survival needs. 3 to 5 hours. That was enough. Food, shelter, water, everything necessary for life was handled in about the time it takes you to get through your morning meetings. The rest of the day was theirs. And what they did with that time tells you something important about who you actually are. They talked. Constantly. If you could stand invisibly in a Hadza camp during the middle of the day, the first thing you would notice is the noise. Laughter, argument, storytelling, gossip. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent decades recording conversations in Hadza and Kung camps. She found that around 65% of evening conversation was devoted to stories, specifically stories about other people. Who did what? Who behaved badly? Who was generous? Who was brave? The campfire was not just a source of heat. It was the original social network. Your brain is built for this. The social processing networks in your prefrontal cortex, the regions that track other people's intentions, emotions, and reputations, are massively overdeveloped compared to what you would need just to find food and avoid predators. Neuroscientist Robin Dunbar has argued for decades that the primary driver of human intelligence was not tool use or hunting strategy. It was social complexity. You evolved to track roughly 150 people at once, their relationships, their loyalties, their debts. That number is now called Dunbar's number. Your brain built that capacity not in offices or classrooms, but around fires in the dark, processing story after story about the people you lived and died alongside. So they talked, they also rested, far more than you do. This one surprises most people. The dominant modern belief is that rest is earned. You work, then you rest. You produce, then you recover. But ancient humans did not draw that line. Rest was woven through the day. Anthropologist David Kaplan studied activity patterns in traditional societies and found that rest was not a reward at the end of labor, but a continuous rhythm threaded through everything else. Short bursts of intense activity, then rest, then movement again. Your body still craves this pattern. It is why sitting perfectly still for 8 straight hours feels like a kind of violence. You were not built for it. They played. Children in hunter-gatherer societies play for hours every day, almost entirely unsupervised, across wide age ranges, in ways that directly build the physical and social skills survival requires. But adults played too. competitive games, games of skill, music, dance. Archaeologist Stephen Mithen has argued that music making is one of the oldest human behaviors, almost certainly predating agriculture by hundreds of thousands of years. Bone flutes found in Hohlefels Cave in Germany date back at least 40,000 years. There were people alive before the wheel, before writing, before every form of civilization you can name, who finished their 3 to 5 hours of survival work and then made music together. Think about what that means. The part of you that wants to make something, play something, create something for no functional reason at all, that is not modern. That is not a luxury. That is ancient. That impulse is older than farming. They also spent enormous amounts of time on what modern researchers call social grooming, picking through hair, touching, sitting close. In primates, this is the primary social bonding mechanism. In humans, language partly replaced it, but the physical component never fully disappeared. Touch remained central. Proximity remained central. You did not sit alone in a separate room staring at a glowing rectangle for 12 hours. You were surrounded by the same 20 or 30 people nearly every waking moment until the day you died. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. Evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Nisi has spent his career studying what he calls the mismatch problem. The gap between the environment your body and brain evolved for and the environment you actually live in. His argument is that a significant portion of modern mental illness, the epidemic rates of anxiety, depression, loneliness, and chronic stress, cannot be explained by individual psychology alone. They are, in part, the predictable result of asking a Paleolithic nervous system to function inside a modern world it was never designed for. Your stress response, the spike of cortisol and adrenaline that floods your body when something goes wrong, evolved to handle acute physical threats. A predator, a rival tribe, a sudden fall. It was designed to fire hard and fast and then turn off completely once the threat passed. But the threats you face now do not pass. Your inbox stays full. The deadline does not disappear. The social comparison never ends. The stress response that was built to save your life in short, violent bursts now runs at a low, persistent simmer, almost continuously, and it is slowly burning your body from the inside. Ancient humans were not free from stress. That is not the point. They faced genuine terror, starvation, disease, violence, death that arrived without warning. But the structure of their days gave the nervous system room to breathe. Time to fully exit the threat state. Time to return to baseline. The 3 to 5 hours of work was genuinely hard. The rest of the day was genuinely rest. And they slept differently than you do. Sleep researcher Jerome Siegel studied sleep patterns in 3 pre-industrial hunter-gatherer societies, the Hadza, the San, and the Tsimane, and found something that upended decades of assumptions about human sleep. They did not sleep 8 straight hours. They averaged 6.5 to 7 hours a night, falling asleep several hours after sunset, not immediately. They frequently woke during the night for short periods without any apparent distress. They did not have a concept of insomnia. They simply existed in a different relationship with darkness and rest than you do. Many of the sleep problems you consider personal failures may be, in Siegel's words, a cultural artifact rather than a biological defect. You were not designed to wake at a fixed time to the sound of an alarm. You were designed to wake when your body finished sleeping. So what does a real ancient Tuesday actually look like? You wake when it is light enough to move, probably just before sunrise. Your first act is fire maintenance or rekindling. Conversation starts almost immediately. Someone goes for water. The women in most hunter-gatherer societies do the majority of plant food gathering, which provides 60 to 80% of total calories. This is methodical, skilled, social work done in groups with constant talking. The men organize a hunt or scout for game, which requires tracking skill, patience, and quiet cooperation. By midday, the work of survival is mostly done. The hottest part of the day, the world over, is spent in shade, sleeping, talking, doing nothing. Children play in the periphery. Someone makes a sound with their hands or a piece of wood that makes the others laugh. At dusk, the fire comes back up, and the stories start. Stories that bind. Stories that teach. Stories that name who you are and where you came from. You fall asleep to the sound of other people breathing nearby. That is the Tuesday your nervous system was calibrated for. You will never live that life. That is not the point of knowing this. The point is that the chronic restlessness, the guilt about unproductive hours, the longing for deeper connection, the sense that the way you spend your days does not match something deep inside you. None of that is weakness. None of it is malfunction. It is the ghost of an older pattern still running in a body that has not caught up with its own calendar. The next time you drop everything and spend a whole afternoon talking with someone you love, doing nothing that could be called productive, you are not wasting time. You are doing exactly what your ancestors did on their version of a Tuesday. You are, for a few hours, living the way your brain was actually built to live. And when the sun goes down tonight and you reach for your phone instead of a fire, just remember, somewhere inside you, the story is still waiting to be told.